some cases. But you've also written of your personal experience of being able to sort of marshal music to sort of facilitate some action. So, for instance, there's a bit of a grisly accident that befell you in Norway, I think.
Right. Yeah, I'm very clumsy, and I can't climb a mountain without falling off. And I had a bad accident and had, well, rather worse than a broken leg. I tore the quadriceps muscle off along with its nerve supply, and had a rather useless leg. I splinted it as best I could and started to go down the mountain like this, which was hard work. And until the Volga Boatman song came into my mind, and yo heave ho, and this way I got into the rhythm of it, and I felt I was sort of music down, and it became coordinated and effortless, and I feel the Volga Boatman song sort of, and this essentially human business of responding to a beat with a movement sort of saved my life. And this is essentially human. You know, all children begin to dance or to keep time without any training. It happens spontaneously when they hear rhythmic music, internally or externally. You don't have a dancing chimpanzee. The connections between the auditory and the motor are purely human. And you know, one of the and so I think this sort of thing was very, very, very crucial.
And it was also an impetus with the sleepy sickness patients, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, these sort of deeply Parkinsonian patients were often absolutely motionless and unable to initiate or imagine any movement or to utter a syllable, but music would suddenly release them in the most amazing way and give them a power, give them flow, give them temporal organization which they couldn't generate for themselves. I knew W.H. Auden a little bit in his latter days, and I once took him along to see this. He was very musical himself. He'd sort of written the librettos to many operas, and his father, actually, George Auden, had been a pioneer observer of the sleepy sickness in England in the 1920s. When Auden saw this, he was amazed. He quoted an aphorism of Novalis, which says, every disease is a musical problem, and every cure is a musical solution. I mean, that seems almost too pat, but it seems exactly right for these people who would be suddenly enabled by music and almost come to a stop in mid-bar if the music did.
And conversely, if we think of people with Tourette's, you've written in the book how it can be an organising force and somehow sort of calm down their erratic tics. So Matt Giordano, I think, is a Tourette's guy that you've met. He's now in the drumming group.
Yeah, Tourette's in some ways is almost the opposite of Parkinson's. You know, William James once talked about pathologies of the will, as he called it, the obstructed and the explosive. And if the Parkinsonian is obstructed, the Tourette's is impulsive and explosive, irrepressible movements, not synchronized, this chap, Matt Giordano, is a drummer with very severe Tourette's. But as a boy, when he was 6 or 7 years old, he discovered that music and rhythm, and in particular drumming, could coordinate him as nothing else could. And one of the things which I saw fairly recently, I wish it had been filmed, maybe it can be one day. Matt had a drum circle. He was the drum leader. There were 20 or 25 people with Tourette's, all of them jerking and ticking in their own times, erratically and out of sync with themselves, out of sync with everyone else. And the whole lot were orchestrated with the drumming. And amongst other things, you've got this wonderful feeling of the bonding power of rhythm. and people drumming together, singing together, doing things together, doing them in unison. And I think this also gave me a feeling of drumming as just of rhythm, as a sort of primal organizing force in culture.
Mm-hmm. So music can have a great effects on the motor system and on sort of facilitating or organising movement. But you've also written about how it can be present when very few other cognitive faculties are, for instance, in cases of dementia.
Yeah. Although maybe there may be a huge neural task has to be accomplished to perceive music and to hear music and construct it. Once there's no one center for music, but once this very complex musical system is set up, it tends to be very robust. And in people with amnesia, who can't remember the events, many of the events of their life, or people with dementia, who are not only amnesic, but maybe have lost the power of language and may be very out of contact and lost and frightened or agitated. Even in deep dementia, familiar music, music once heard is nearly always recognized and responded to. And it's immensely moving and extraordinary to see. I work especially in old age homes and with geriatric populations, to see people on an Alzheimer ward sort of transformed when a music therapist comes in and starts to play, or even to gain the attention of someone who is deeply demented, and to hold it is difficult. And here it's done so powerfully, and people may start to sing along, and the songs may by association raise memories and moods and feelings of identity, which these people can't access directly, and it's just tremendously refreshing, I think, to move and to see music therapy with this sort of population. And music therapy has been partly hyped and partly dismissed, and one obviously needs to define both its powers and its limitations, but the powers are very real.
Okay, well, I've had my chance to have a one-to-one with Professor Sachs, and I'd like to open it up now to the audience, take some questions.
And you're going to have to mediate, because I not only do I fail to hear, but I mishear as obscenities.
I've got two questions. One, which refers to your congenital amnesia. In some of my neuropsychological work, I'm trying to look at the commonality between congenital and acquired cases of the disorder, and I was wondering whether we looked at that. And the second is a more technical question, which is this very interesting idea of auditory stimulation helping these people who are in a Parkinsonian state. In the memory literature, there's something called the unintended speech effect, where we know that verbal information gets into our cognitive system, even if we're trying to block it out. And it seems at some level that music is getting some obligatory access into the system, which is waking these people up or helping to stimulate them. And I was wondering whether any work is being done in that area to look at why there's this obligatory access of music. So one is the congenital versus
Sure. Okay, which would you like to take first?
Well, I didn't catch even
one.